The room was smoke-filled, subterranean, and sterile. It was 1981. Beneath the polished facade of Tel Aviv, the men who truly ran the country were looking at a map. The map was massive, covering an entire wall. It was not a map of borders. It was a map of problems. To the north, Syria and the Bekaa Valley. To the east, Jordan and the long, hostile expanse of Iraq. To the south and west, Egypt, a cold peace, but a barrier nonetheless. And beyond that, the vast ungoverned spaces of Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. The man pointing at the map was General Yitzhak Hofi, the head of Mossad. His finger didn't land on a country. It traced a line, a blue line, the Red Sea. "Here," Hofi said, his voice a low gravel. "This is our gap, our blind spot, and our opportunity." The men in the room, chiefs of intelligence, logistics, and naval operations, understood. The Red Sea was a geopolitical choke point. To the east, Saudi Arabia. To the west, Sudan and Egypt. To the south, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, a narrow alleyway policed by Soviet-backed Yemen. Israel's problem was twofold. First, the outreach doctrine. The nation was building quiet alliances with non-Arab states and proxy groups on the periphery of the Middle East. These partners, in Ethiopia, in Sudan, in Kenya, needed help. They needed self-defense systems, communication gear, and medical supplies. They needed hardware. Flying it in was impossible. The airspace was hostile. Second, the extraction problem. Israel had agents, assets, and friendly individuals trapped in these same territories. Not just Ethiopian Jews, but compromised Sayanim, local helpers, and agents whose covers were blown. "We cannot sail a missile boat down the Gulf of Aqaba every time a package needs to be delivered," Hofi continued. "Every mission is a major military operation. It is loud. It is unsustainable." He turned from the map. "We need a different solution. We need something that is not military, something that is boring." A younger man in the room, Ari, a Katsa field officer from the Logistics and Operations Division, finally spoke. He wasn't a soldier. He was a former kibbutznik who had run a shipping import business in his civilian life. "We don't need a mission," Ari said, his voice cutting through the smoke. "We need a business." The room went silent. "A business," Ari repeated, standing up and walking to the map. "What moves through the Red Sea every single day? Unchallenged, unremarked. Commerce. Rust buckets carrying grain from Australia, spare parts from Germany, livestock from Somalia. They are slow, they are dirty, and they are invisible." Hofi looked at him, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. "Go on. We don't create a mission. We create a legend. A fully fledged, registered, operational, boring shipping company. We buy a ship, not a good one, a leaky, believable one. We register it in Panama. We flag it in Liberia. We open a management office in Piraeus. We hire a real crew, Filipinos, Greeks, who know nothing. We move real cargo. We take real contracts." Ari tapped the coast of Sudan. "We will haul grain to Port Sudan, and our captain will complain about the heat and the slow dock workers, just like every other captain. We will bid on contracts to move tractors to Mombasa. We will become part of the noise. And in this noise," Hofi finished, "we move our real cargo." "Exactly," Ari said. "The hardware is just another container marked agricultural spare parts. The extraction is just a crew change in a dark patch of sea. The infrastructure becomes the cover. We will hide our operations in plain sight, buried under thousands of pages of bills of lading, customs manifests, and insurance forms." The plan was audacious not because of its violence, but because of its subtlety. It was an operation not of commandos, but of accountants, maritime lawyers, and logistics managers. It would be slow, expensive, and infinitely complex. Hofi stared at the map again, at the blue line that had seemed like a wall. Now it looked like a highway. "A business," Hofi mused. "What will you call this? Enterprise?" Ari smiled. "Something dull, something forgettable, something like Red Sea Transit and Maritime Services, RSTMS." The meeting ended. The smoke cleared. The blueprint for one of the most complex, long-running intelligence operations in Mossad history had just been approved. The ghost fleet was about to be born. A shipping line is not a ship. A shipping line is a story. And Mossad's first task was to write its fiction. The operation was given a code name, Project Babylon by Sea. The file landed on the desk of Dana, a woman who ran a quiet, unassuming department within Mossad. Her division didn't handle weapons or agents. It handled money. She was the agency's forge master, a wizard of shell corporations, offshore accounts, and the labyrinthine world of international finance. To create Red Sea Transit and Maritime Services, RSTMS, Dana needed to build a fortress of paper. Her first move was in Panama City, Panama. A local lawyer, a Sayan who had been dormant for a decade, was activated. He filed incorporation papers for RSTMS. The listed directors were a triumvirate of phantom names, citizens of countries that didn't automatically share information. The cost was $500 and a bottle of whiskey for the registrar. Next, Luxembourg. Dana routed state funds through a dozen different accounts, a Belgian diamond dealer, a French art importer, a New York real estate holding, before it materialized as the $2 million capitalization fund for RSTMS in a sleepy Luxembourg bank. The bank, known for its discretion, saw only a promising new maritime venture. The most critical piece was the face of the company. A shipping line needs an office. Not in Tel Aviv, not even in Israel. It needed to be in the heart of the global maritime world, Piraeus, Greece. Ari, the Katsa who had conceived the plan, flew to Athens on a forged Canadian passport. He wasn't looking for a spy nest. He was looking for a real office. He found it on the third floor of a dusty building overlooking the harbor. It was small, smelled of stale tobacco, and the telex machine in the corner was already broken. It was perfect. He hired a local Greek, a semi-retired shipping agent named Spiros. Spiros was not a scion. He was a civilian. He was legitimate. He was also, Ari noted, deeply in debt from gambling. Mossad's psychological profile unit had flagged him as manageable. "It's a small investment group from London," Ari explained to Spiros in his role as Mr. Feldman, the company's representative. "They think there's money in the Horn of Africa trade. Low volume, high margins. You'll manage the chartering." Spiros, delighted to have a job that paid twice what he was worth, agreed instantly. He would be the one answering the phone, filing the manifests, and complaining to port authorities. He would be the unwitting, legitimate face of the operation. Now they needed the most important character in their story, the captain. This could not be faked. You couldn't put a Katsa in a captain's hat and hope he could navigate the Suez Canal. You needed a real mariner. But he also had to be Mossad. They found him in the naval reserves. Yossi, a grizzled, barrel-chested man who had commanded missile boats in the '73 war. He was also a fully licensed master mariner who had spent 20 years in the merchant navy. He was a man who loved the sea more than the land, a man who understood the language of storms and engine rooms. Yossi was brought to the subterranean office. He was briefed. He didn't flinch. "You want me to command a rust bucket?" he grunted. "We want you to command our most important intelligence platform," Hofi replied. "The crew," Yossi said, already thinking. "They can't be ours. The cover will be blown in a day. You need a real crew." "We agree," Ari said. "You will be the only Israeli on board, the only Katsa. The rest we hire in Manila and Athens. They'll be real sailors, working for a real paycheck. You will be their boss, their priest, and their jailer. They can never, ever know." Yossi nodded. "And the ship?" "That," Ari said, "is the next step. We're going shopping." The legend was built. RSTMS had a name, a bank, an office, and a captain. It existed on paper in 5 different countries. It was a perfectly crafted, hollow corporation. All it needed was a soul. It needed a ship. The ship was rotting in a breaker's yard in southern Italy. She wasn't much to look at. A 3,000-ton general cargo vessel built in a German yard in the late 1960s. Her name, painted in fading letters on the stern, was the Santa Regina. Her hull was a tapestry of rust. Her engine was cold. She was destined to be cut apart for scrap. Ari and Yossi, the new captain, stood on the docks in La Spezia. disguised as independent buyers for a small shipping firm. Yossi walked around the vessel, his eyes scanning every rivet, every weld. He climbed the gangplank, the metal groaning under his weight. Ari followed. The ship was a mess. The cabins were filled with mildew. The galley was infested. The engine room was a tomb of grease and cold steel. Ari looked at Yossi. "Well, she's perfect," Yossi said, a rare smile cracking his face. He slapped a bulkhead. "The steel is good, German. The engine is a simple man diesel, easy to fix, easy to find parts for. She's slow, she's ugly. No one will ever look at her twice." They bought the Santa Regina for a fraction of her original cost through the Piraeus office. The transaction was logged by Spiros, who complained about his bosses overpaying for a floating coffin. The ship was towed to a friendly shipyard, a small private dock in Sicily, run by a family with old, unstated ties to Israeli intelligence. The official order was a simple refit: sandblast the hull, paint, and rebuild the engine. The real work happened at night. A second team arrived, not shipwrights, but specialists from Mossad's technical division. While the Italian crew sandblasted the hull by day, the Israeli team rebuilt the ship from the inside out. They didn't add missile launchers. They added space. Behind the main engine block, a space was carved out between two fuel ballast tanks. A new, false bulkhead was welded into place. It was a secret room, 12 feet by 12 feet. Its entrance was a panel in the engine room that looked like a standard access port for the ship's plumbing. You could only open it with a specific sequence of turning 3 separate, unmarked valves, a sequence known only to Yossi. Next, the communications room. The ship had a standard high-frequency radio. The Mossad team installed a second system. From the outside, it looked like a spare generator. It was, in fact, a burst transmission satellite uplink, capable of sending and receiving encrypted messages directly to and from Tel Aviv headquarters. The antenna was disguised as a standard part of the ship's radar mast. They also altered the cargo hold. The floor was raised by 6 inches, creating a shallow hidden compartment across the entire bottom of the ship, perfect for small arms, explosives, or sensitive documents. Finally, they painted her. She was given a new name, one chosen for its utter lack of poetry: the SS Axom. Her hull was painted a dull, unremarkable brick red. Her funnel was painted with the new company logo for RSTMS, a simple blue R on a white circle. After 2 months, she was relaunched. Yossi flew to Manila and Athens, hiring his crew: a Filipino bosun, Greek engineers, Egyptian deckhands, a classic polyglot merchant crew. They were professionals. They were also, crucially, oblivious. They signed their contracts, happy to be working on a ship that, despite its age, was clean and had a rebuilt engine. In September 1981, the SS Axom sailed from Sicily. Her official cargo, logged by Spiros, was 2,000 tons of Italian marble bound for a construction project in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Her real cargo was a single sealed crate, loaded at night by the technical team, sitting in the new hidden compartment behind the engine. It was a test package, high-end communications gear for the Mossad station chief in Nairobi. The Axom entered the Suez Canal. Yossi stood on the bridge, sipping coffee, his new, unaware crew going about their duties. He was just another captain on just another ship. The Ghost Fleet had set sail. Port Sudan, 1982. The air was a physical weight, a thick, humid blanket of 110-degree heat, salt, and the smell of fermented grain and diesel. The SS Axom was tied up at berth 4, her red hull streaked with salt. Her official manifest, filed by Spiros and Piraeus, declared she was carrying 500 tons of bagged lentils from Turkey. This was a legit cargo, a real contract won by the Piraeus office. The noise. On the bridge, Captain Yossi argued with a Sudanese port official about wharfage fees. It was a practiced, theatrical argument, expected by both sides. Below deck, in the sweltering heat of the galley, the Filipino cook cursed as he tried to find fresh vegetables. It was all perfectly, agonizingly normal. This was the Axom's 4th voyage, but it was her first real test. The mission: deliver a high-priority package to a local scion and establish a permanent, secure logistics chain. The scion was a man known as the librarian. He was a quiet, educated Sudanese man who worked in the port's customs documentation office. He was not an Israeli agent. He was a Sudanese patriot who despised the new Islamist-leaning government and had been cultivated by Mossad for years. He believed he was helping a European business consortium undermine the regime. The package was not in the cargo hold. It was in the hidden compartment behind the engine block. It contained 3 items: a large sum of untraceable US dollars, a sophisticated shortwave radio transmitter, and a set of forged identification papers for another Mossad agent in Khartoum. The problem was getting the package off the ship. Port Sudan was controlled by the Sudanese Mukhabarat, the secret police. The docks were crawling with their informants. Every local worker, every customs official, every stevedore pulling ropes was a potential pair of eyes. A single mistake, a package handed off at the wrong time, a nervous glance, would not just compromise the mission, it would burn the Axom and the entire RSTMS legend. This was why Ari, the Katza from Tel Aviv, was on board. To the crew, he was Mr. Jonas, the shipping line's supercargo, the owner's representative. It was a common role. He was there to ensure the cargo is handled correctly and to manage the ship's accounts. He ate with Yossi, reviewed the manifests, and chain-smoked on the deck. The plan was simple. It was a waste transfer. At 14:00, the hottest part of the day, Ari put the plan in motion. He complained loudly to Yossi about the ship's garbage problem. The galley waste, he yelled, was attracting rats. As per port regulations, Yossi radioed the port authority and requested a refuse removal service. An hour later, a small rickety garbage scow pulled alongside the Axom. It was a normal, daily procedure. 2 local workers stood on the scow, waiting for the ship's waste. The librarian, using his customs credentials, had ensured that this specific scow was assigned to the Axom. One of the 2 workers on the scow was his own operative. From the Axom's main deck, 2 of the Filipino deckhands, who knew nothing, began lowering sacks of legitimate galley waste to the scow. In the engine room, Ari and Yossi worked quickly. They opened the hidden compartment. Ari retrieved the package, which was triple wrapped in black plastic and sealed inside an empty grease-stained oil canister. It was indistinguishable from the engine room's actual waste. Ari carried the canister up from the engine room. He walked onto the deck. The Sudanese customs inspector, sitting in the shade of a crane, watched him. Ari smiled and nodded. He walked to the railing, where the deckhands were still throwing down bags. "More waste from the engine room," Ari yelled in his broken English. "This ship is filthy." He handed the heavy canister to a deckhand. "This one too." The deckhand, annoyed by the extra work, simply tossed the canister down onto the scow. It landed with a thud among the potato peels and coffee grounds. The operative on the scow didn't even look at it. The transfer was complete. It had happened in front of a customs inspector and half the dock, yet it was invisible. The scow chugged away. The librarian would retrieve the canister at the port's garbage dump. Ari lit a cigarette, his hand shaking slightly. The heat was unbearable. He looked at Yossi, who was already back to arguing about the wharfage fees. The Axom would spend 2 more days in Port Sudan, loading a new cargo of Sudanese cotton bound for Italy. The Ghost Fleet had just made its first delivery. The greatest threat to Project Babylon by Sea was not the Egyptian Mukhabarat or the Soviet trawlers. It was Manuel. Manuel was the Axom's bosun, chief petty officer. A 50-year-old Filipino from Cebu, he had spent 35 years at sea. He knew ships in a way Yossi knew combat and Ari knew spreadsheets. He knew their smells, their sounds, their souls. And he knew the Axom had secrets. The crew of 12 was a miniature United Nations of the working class. Filipinos like Manuel, Greek engineers who worshipped the MAN diesel engine, and Egyptian deckhands hired in Suez. They were paid well by RSTMS, and the bonuses, delivered in cash by Mr. Jonas, Ari, were substantial. In the world of tramp freighters, RSTMS was a good employer. But Manuel was smart. He noticed things. He noticed that Captain Yossi, who spoke perfect, fluent English to the port authorities in Mombasa, spoke a thick, almost comically bad English to his own supercargo, Mr. Jonas. But he also noticed that when Yossi and Jonas thought no one was listening, they spoke to each other in a fast, guttural language he didn't recognize. It wasn't Greek. It wasn't English. He noticed the ship's maintenance schedules. Mr. Jonas was obsessive about the small empty space behind the engine's ballast tanks. He insisted on inspecting it himself at every port, alone. Manuel, who knew every inch of the ship, knew there was nothing back there to inspect. Just pipes. He noticed the radio. One night during a storm in the Gulf of Aden, the main radio had been knocked out by a lightning strike. The crew was in a panic, cut off, but Captain Yossi seemed calm. The next morning, the radio was working again, but Manuel's assistant swore he had seen the captain exiting the spare generator room on the bridge deck, a room that was always kept locked, even to the chief engineer. The human factor was a constant high-wire act. Ari and Yossi were two Katsas living in a steel box with 12 potential witnesses. The tension came to a head in a bar in Djibouti. Djibouti was the Casablanca of the Red Sea, a hot, dusty port teeming with French legionnaires, Soviet sailors from the base at Aden, American contractors, and spies from every service on Earth. It was a city of whispers. The Axom's crew was given shore leave. Manuel, the engineers, and the deckhands hit a local bar. The rule from Yossi was simple. Drink, have fun, but no talking about the ship. That night, the Axom's chief engineer, a Greek named Kostas, drank too much. A group of rough-looking men at the next table, who Kostas assumed were Bulgarian sailors, struck up a conversation. They bought him a drink. "You work on the Axom?" one of the men asked in broken English. "The red one? She's an old ship." "She is a good ship," Kostas slurred, defensive. "Good engine, and good owners. They pay well." Strange route, no?" the Bulgarian said. "Sudan, then Mombasa, then back to Jeddah. Not much profit in that." "The owners are smart," Kostas said, puffing his chest. "They have special cargo. The supercargo, Jonas. He watches it himself." At a table in the corner, Ari, Mr. Jonas, sat listening. He was not there to drink. He was the chaperone. He watched the Bulgarian lean in, his eyes sharp. Ari knew a swallow, a honey trap, or a dangle, a recruitment attempt, when he saw one. This was an intelligence probe. The KGB's naval intelligence was curious. Ari stood up, walked over, and put a friendly hand on Kostas's shoulder. "Kostas, my friend, the captain needs you. The engine. A problem with the fuel injector." Kostas, immediately sobered by the thought of his engine failing, apologized to the Bulgarians and stumbled out with Ari. Back on the ship, Ari didn't yell. He was calm. He helped Kostas to his bunk and gave him water. The next morning, Kostas was horrified. "Mr. Jonas, I am sorry. I said nothing." "You said everything," Ari replied, his voice soft. "You told them we are not just a shipping company. You told them we are interesting. The one thing we cannot be is interesting." Ari pulled out a stack of cash. "This is your bonus and your severance. You will be flown home from here. You are a fine engineer, Kostas, but your time with RSTMS is over." Kostas was crushed, but he took the money. Ari and Yossi watched him walk down the gangplank. "We have a problem," Yossi grunted. "The KGB is sniffing." "I know," Ari said, "and we're leaking. Not secrets, just curiosity." He looked at Manuel, who was coiling a rope on the deck watching the exchange. Manuel saw Kostas leave. He saw the envelope of cash. He looked at Ari. Their eyes met for a long second. Manuel didn't smile. He didn't frown. He simply turned, spat on the deck, and went back to his work. Manuel knew. He didn't know what, but he knew. And he knew that the generous paychecks were for something more than hauling cargo. He was, in his own way, a prisoner of the operation. And he was, by his silence, a participant. The operation was now in its second year. The SS Axom was a familiar sight in the Red Sea. Her boring legend was firmly established. She was the ship that was always late, always had engine trouble, and always paid her port fees in cash. But the mission was evolving. The outreach doctrine required more than just cash and radios. Israel's allies in the region, particularly the Christian militias in South Sudan fighting the Khartoum government, needed self-defense systems. They needed crates of Belgian FAL rifles, mortars, and, most importantly, shoulder-fired anti-aircraft missiles to counter the government's helicopter gunships. This was not a package that could be hidden in an oil canister. This required a new level of audacity. The plan was set. The hardware was first flown from Israel to a friendly African nation, Kenya. In Mombasa, the hardware was repackaged by a Mossad logistics team at a secure warehouse. The crates, now stenciled with Massey Ferguson tractor parts, were loaded into a standard 20-foot shipping container. The container was sealed, not with a standard bolt, but with a high-security lock, the key to which was currently in Ari's pocket. The Axom docked in Mombasa, its manifest claiming it was picking up agricultural equipment bound for a development project in Egypt. The container was loaded by the Mombasa port cranes into the Axom's main hold. It was a legit cargo, logged and stamped. The Axom sailed north. Her destination was not a port. 4 nights later, Yossi steered the ship into a dark, uninhabited stretch of the Red Sea, just outside recognized shipping lanes. The location was a dark spot chosen by naval intelligence, a place where radar coverage from both the Egyptian and Saudi coasts was poor. At Oro 2-1, Yossi gave the order. The ship's engines were cut. The Axom drifted in the oily black water, a ghost ship with all her lights extinguished. The crew was told it was a critical engine repair. Manuel and the deckhands were ordered to stay on the main deck. The Greek engineers were sent to the engine room to fix a non-existent problem. Ari and Yossi went to the hold. They opened the tractor parts container. Inside were not tractor parts, but dozens of long, green wooden crates. "They're late," Ari said, checking his watch. He was sweating, and not from the heat. "They'll be here," Yossi said. He was scanning the horizon with night vision goggles. Suddenly, a flicker. A low, dark shape was approaching, running without lights. It was not a fishing boat. It was a Devora-class patrol boat from the Israeli Navy, painted black, its markings obscured, having dashed south from the Gulf of Aqaba at high speed. The Devora pulled alongside the Axom. The sea was calm, but the 2 vessels still rose and fell at different rhythms. A commando team from the Shayatet 13 Naval Unit was on board the patrol boat. "This is the hard part," Yossi muttered. There was no crane. The transfer had to be done by hand. The commandos and the 2 Katsas formed a human chain. For 2 hours, in near total silence, they muscled the heavy crates, each one containing a missile launcher or a box of ammunition, from the Axom's hold, over the railing, and down onto the deck of the lurching patrol boat. It was brutal, exhausting work. A single dropped crate, a slip, a flash of a light would be catastrophic. On the main deck, Manuel watched. He couldn't see what they were loading. He could just see the dark shapes, the whispered commands in that language he didn't know, and the low, powerful boat that had arrived like a shark in the night. He saw Mr. Jonas, the supercargo, his shirt soaked in sweat, his hands raw, lifting crates with the strength of a stevedore. This was not a shipping company. Manuel knew that now, with chilling certainty. At 0430, the last crate was on board the Devora. The patrol boat's commander gave a single wave. Her engines rumbled to life, and she vanished into the pre-dawn darkness, racing west toward the Sudanese coast. Her commandos would run the hardware ashore at a deserted beach where militia scouts were already waiting. Ari and Yossi sealed the now empty container. It would be offloaded in Egypt as planned, still marked tractor parts. The paper trail would be complete. Yossi gave the order to restart the engines. The Axom shuddered back to life. Ari lit a cigarette, his whole body aching. He walked past Manuel. "Go get some sleep, bosun," Ari said. "Long night." "Yes, Mr. Jonas," Manuel replied, his voice flat. He looked at Ari's hands, cut and bleeding from the wooden crates. "Very long night?" The invisible highway was now fully operational. The tractor parts delivery was a success. The anti-aircraft missiles, in the hands of the Sudanese rebels, shifted the balance of power in their region. Khartoum was furious but baffled, blaming the Libyans. In Tel Aviv, the operation was hailed as a triumph of a new kind of warfare. Logistical. "The Axom is a masterpiece," Ari reported to the Mossad leadership. "But she's a single point of failure. She's slow, she's small, and as our friend in Djibouti proved, she is becoming interesting." The KGB was not the only service watching. French, Egyptian, and Saudi intelligence had all filed reports on the quirky, little red freighter with the strange routes. The legend was working, but it was also wearing thin. The operation is a victim of its own success, Dana, the finance chief, added. We have more requests for hardware and extraction than one ship can handle. The business needs to grow. The solution was counterintuitive. To become less visible, RSTMS needed to become bigger. We need a fleet, Ari proposed. Or at least one more ship, a different kind of ship, something bigger, something more modern. We will run a shell game. We'll move cargo from one ship to the other at sea. We'll split the manifests. We'll create a level of bureaucratic confusion so deep that no one can follow the trail. The plan was approved. Dana went back to her magic, creating a new influx of capital for RSTMS from a Swiss investment in the company's successful first 2 years. This time, they bought a ship from a bankrupt Danish line. She was a 10,000-ton container vessel, built in 1975. She was faster, larger, and more sophisticated than the Axom. Her name was the Viking Star. She was sailed to the same shipyard in Sicily. This time, the refit was even more advanced. The Viking Star was a container ship. Mossad's tech team didn't just build a secret room, they built a secret container. Codenamed the Chameleon, it was a standard 40-foot shipping container, identical in every way to the thousands that sailed the seas. Except it wasn't. One side was a hidden door, opening into a fully equipped, soundproofed, air-conditioned operations center. It had its own generator, its own air supply, and the most advanced signals intelligence, SIGINT, and communications suite Mossad possessed. When the Chameleon was on the Viking Star's deck, it was an invisible mobile listening post. It could monitor port communications, track Soviet naval signals, and serve as a forward command center for Katsas in country. The ship was also fitted with a high-speed, military-grade inflatable boat, hidden in a compartment disguised as a water treatment unit. This boat could be launched from a small, concealed hydraulic crane in under 3 minutes. The ship was rechristened the Red Sea Star. A new crew was hired. This time, the captain was not a Katsa. He was a retired, non-Jewish British merchant captain. He was a professional, hired for his skills, and for his crippling alcoholism, which made him malleable and under the complete control of his first mate. The new first mate was a 28-year-old Mossad Katsa named Rafi, a former naval commando with a license to match the captain's. Rafi would assist the alcoholic captain, who was mostly confined to his cabin with a steady supply of special medical brandy from the owners. Rafi was the real commander of the Red Sea Star. Now the Ghost Fleet was 2. The Axom would continue her tramp work, small ports, dirty cargo, and the occasional high-risk delivery. The Red Sea Star would run the legitimate container routes, Piraeus to Jeddah, Mombasa to Rotterdam. She would be the clean face of the company, building a reputation for reliability. But on her deck, among the 500 other containers, the Chameleon would be listening. And in her hold, her special crane would be ready. The shell game had begun. The operation's complexity was its strength and its greatest weakness. With 2 ships, a compromised crewman, 2 separate logistics chains, and dozens of Psionim on the ground, the number of things that could go wrong had multiplied exponentially. The first crack appeared not in the Red Sea, but in an office in Cairo. An Egyptian customs inspector at Port Tawfik, at the southern mouth of the Suez Canal, was bored. His name was Ahmed Fahmy. He was not a spy. He was not corrupt. He was, far worse, a bureaucrat. He was meticulous. He liked things to add up. And Red Sea Transit and Maritime Services did not add up. Fahmy was reviewing the canal transit logs for the month. He noticed the SS Axom. In the past 6 months, it had declared transit cargoes for destinations that made no sense. It had declared German auto parts for Sudan, a country with virtually no German cars. It had declared textiles for Djibouti, a port that primarily exported textiles. And it had, on 3 occasions, paid the high canal transit fees, sailed into the Red Sea, and then returned north a week later with the same cargo, claiming the buyer in Mombasa had rejected the shipment. Fahmy, on his own initiative, began a file. He cross-referenced the Axom's manifests with those of the Red Sea Star, which had recently come into service. He found that the Red Sea Star had docked in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. At the same time, the Axom was drifting with engine trouble 20 miles away. He found that a container of medical supplies offloaded by the Red Sea Star in Mombasa had the exact same manifest number as a container of oil drilling equipment loaded onto the Axom in Eilat a month earlier. Fahmy wasn't suspecting espionage. He was suspecting smuggling. He thought RSTMS was a gray market operation, avoiding tariffs and selling container loads on the open sea. He wrote a memo to his superior in the Egyptian General Intelligence Directorate, GID, the Mukhabarat. He recommended that the Axom, on its next passage through the canal, be detained for a full and comprehensive inspection. This memo, flagged by a low-level scion, a secretary, within the GID, was on Ari's desk in Tel Aviv within 24 hours. It was a crisis. A full inspection would mean teams of inspectors going through the Axom with drills and dogs. They would find the hidden compartments. They would find the encrypted radio. The legend would be shattered, the ship seized, and Captain Yossi arrested. The Axom was currently in the Mediterranean, scheduled to enter the Suez Canal in 72 hours. "We have to divert," a junior officer in the Mossad command center said. "Send her to Rotterdam. We scrubbed the ship." "No," Ari said, his mind racing. "That confirms his suspicion. If we run, he knows we're dirty. We've spent 2 years building a legend of being a normal company, a normal greedy company. So what do? We lean in," Ari said. "Mr. Fahmy thinks we're smugglers? Fine, we'll give him a smuggler." Ari turned to Yossi, who was on a secure line from the Axom's bridge. "Yossi, when you reach Port Said, I want you to make a mistake. I want you to forget to declare 2 containers of Johnny Walker whiskey you're transporting for a client in Djibouti." Yossi, a veteran of these games, understood immediately. "Whiskey, got it. That's a big fine." "It's a bribe," Ari corrected. "When Fahmy's men board, they're not looking for secret compartments. They're looking for contraband. You will be apologetic. You will be caught. You will pay the fine, and you will pay the bakshish, bribe, to Mr. Fahmy's boss to make the problem go away." When the Axom entered the Suez Canal, it was immediately boarded, just as the Scion had warned. But instead of a high-level counter-espionage team, it was a low-level custom squad, led by Mr. Fahmy's ambitious supervisor. Yossi played his part perfectly. He was flustered. He confessed. The 2 undeclared containers were found. The supervisor was triumphant. The Axom was fined $50,000. Yossi discreetly handed the supervisor an envelope containing $10,000 in cash. The supervisor filed his report. The case was closed. Mr. Fahmy, the meticulous bureaucrat, was reprimanded for wasting GID time on a major espionage hunt when it was just a simple case of whiskey smuggling. His file on RSTMS was buried. The Axom sailed south. The operation had been saved, not by commandos, but by a case of whiskey and a deep understanding of human greed. The Ghost Fleet had proven it could deliver. Now, it had to prove it could retrieve. For years, Israeli intelligence had been desperate to get its hands on a piece of high-value Soviet technology, the P-18 Spoon-Rest-D radar. It was a new generation, mobile, long-range radar system that the Soviets were supplying to their Arab allies, Syria, Egypt, and Iraq. It was the system that would guide the missiles aimed at Israeli jets. In 1983, a chance arrived. A friendly African dictator, deep in a border war with a Soviet-backed neighbor, had captured a P-18 radar system almost intact. The dictator, who was receiving agricultural support from Israel via the Axom, offered a trade. He would give them the radar. In return, he wanted more tractors. Specifically, a dozen upgraded second-hand tanks from Israel's reserves. The deal was made. The problem was logistics. The radar system was not a small box. It was 2 massive trucks, a control vehicle and an antenna vehicle, weighing over 30 tons. It could not be flown out. The dictator's country had no secure port. The radar would be driven by Mossad agents to a remote, deserted stretch of coastline, 200 miles from the nearest town. It was a rendezvous. This was not a job for the Axom. This was a job for the Red Sea Star. The Red Sea Star, under the command of the first mate Rafi, was dispatched. Her official manifest, filed by the Piraeus office, stated she was on her way to India to pick up granite. The stop on the African coast was an emergency engine repair. On her deck was the Chameleon, the SIGINT container. But this time, it was not a listening post. It was a command center. Ari was inside, coordinating the operation via satellite. The ship arrived at the rendezvous point, a kilometer offshore. The water was too shallow to dock. Rafi turned to the British captain. "You're not feeling well, Captain. Go to your cabin. I'll handle this." The captain gratefully vanished. Rafi initiated the plan. This was not a stealth operation. It was a construction job. The ship's crew, the clean crew, was baffled. The first mate ordered them to stop the engines and deploy the ship's 2 massive cargo cranes. "What are we lifting?" the new bosun asked. "Spare parts," Rafi said, his face grim, "from a sister ship that broke down." On the beach, the 2 radar trucks driven by Katsas rolled out of the jungle and onto the sand, their headlights cutting through the darkness. Rafi and a small team of Shayatet 13 commandos, who had been hiding in the water treatment unit, launched the high-speed inflatable boats. They weren't just bringing ropes. They were bringing massive military-grade steel mesh mats, normally used for creating instant runways. For 3 hours, the commandos and agents worked in the surf, laying a temporary road for the heavy trucks to get from the soft sand to the water's edge. The Red Sea Star extended its cranes. This was the most dangerous moment. The ship's cranes were designed to lift containers up. They were not designed to lift a 20-ton truck sideways from a moving beach. The first truck, the antenna, was hooked up. The crane's motor strained. The cable went taut. Rafi, on the radio, guided the crane operator millimeter by millimeter. The truck lifted from the beach. It swung wildly in the dark. A gust of wind caught it. The 20-ton vehicle slammed into the Red Sea Star's hull with a sound like thunder. The entire crew, woken by the noise, rushed to the deck. They saw it all: the military truck, the commandos in the water, the first mate at the railing screaming orders in Hebrew. The secret was out. Rafi didn't care. The mission was paramount. "Get it on board, now!" The crane operator, terrified, hauled the truck up and over the railing, smashing it down onto the deck. The commandos scrambled aboard, followed by the second truck. It was 05 Puro IA. The sun was rising. On the deck of the Red Sea Star sat 2 captured Soviet radar trucks, in plain sight. The entire civilian crew had seen them. Ari, in the Chameleon container, was ice cold. "Rafi, status." "The package is on board," Rafi said. "The legend is blown." "Get the package secured," Ari ordered. "And get us out of here. Full speed. We'll deal with the crew." The Red Sea Star raised anchor and steamed out, leaving a baffled commando team on the beach to dispose of the landing mats. The operation was a success. The radar was on its way to Israel. But Red Sea Transit and Maritime Services, as a boring shipping company, was finished. The human factor, this time the entire crew, was compromised. The news of what the crew had seen spread through the ship like a virus. The British captain had a nervous breakdown and was sedated in his cabin. The Filipino and Greek crew members huddled in the mess hall, whispering. They were no longer sailors. They were hostages. Rafi, the Katsa first mate, called a ship-wide meeting on the aft deck, standing in front of the 2 massive, tarp-covered Soviet trucks. He was no longer Rafi, the friendly first mate. His sidearm was visible. The Shayatet 13 commandos, now in full Israeli uniforms, stood with him. "You are all merchant seamen," Rafi said, his voice hard. "You signed a contract. Your contract has a new clause." He explained it simply. They were now working, temporarily, for the State of Israel. For their silence, for their cooperation on the voyage home, their families would be given $100,000 each. They would be relocated. They would be given new identities in any country of their choosing. "You saw nothing," Rafi said, "and you will be rewarded for your poor eyesight." If they refused, Rafi didn't have to say it. The commandos, the guns, the ocean, it was clear. The Red Sea Star was no longer a merchant ship. It was a de facto Israeli naval vessel, steaming north, its cover blown. But the unraveling had already started elsewhere. In Port Sudan, the librarian, the Sayan who had been the Axom's first contact, was arrested. His arrest had nothing to do with the shipping line. It was bad luck. A different Mossad network, running agents out of Khartoum, had been rolled up by the Sudanese Mukhabarat, who were acting on a tip from their new allies, the Iranians. The librarian was caught in the sweep. He was a patriot, not a trained Katsa. He knew about the Axom. He knew about the garbage scow transfers. He was being tortured. The station chief in Nairobi sent the red alert cable to Tel Aviv. Librarian compromised. Risk of full network exposure. Request immediate extraction of all assets in Sudan. This was the nightmare scenario. In the Tel Aviv command center, the map was a sea of flashing red lights. The Red Sea Star is compromised by her crew, Hofi's deputy said, summarizing the disaster. The Axom, currently in Jeddah, is about to be compromised by the librarian's confession. The KGB is suspicious. The Egyptians are suspicious. The Ghost Fleet was sinking. Ari looked at the map. He saw the two ships. He saw the librarian's cell. He saw the years of work. We have to liquidate, Ari said, his voice heavy. What about the Axom? The deputy asked. Yossi is in Jeddah. If the librarian talks, the Saudis will arrest him the second he returns to the ship. Get a message to Yossi, Ari ordered. Code Typhoon. He is to scuttle the ship. Scuttle? The deputy was shocked. In Jeddah harbor? Not in the harbor, Ari said. He's to sail tonight, claim a bonus cargo in Egypt. He is to take the Axom into the deepest part of the Red Sea, open the sea cocks, and sink her. He and his core crew, the few Katsas who had replaced men like Costas, will be extracted by submarine. It was a brutal calculation. The Axom was an asset, but Yossi was an officer, and the ship could not be captured. It could not be inspected. Its secrets had to go to the bottom of the sea. As for the Red Sea Star, she would not be stopping in Israel. The P-18 radar was too valuable. She was rerouted, steaming around the Horn of Africa, the long way, all the way to a naval base in South Africa. From there, the radar would be flown to Israel. The crew would be debriefed, paid, and resettled in Canada and Australia. The Red Sea Star would be stripped, repainted, and sold to a scrap merchant in Taiwan. The librarian in Sudan was a lost cause. The network was burned. The mission was to save what they could. The unraveling was not a single event. It was a cascade. A story built on paper was being erased by fire, water, and blood. Captain Yossi received the Typhoon message at 21 Siu while docked in Jeddah. It was a simple three-word burst transmission from the spare radio. Execute Typhoon. Good luck. He knew what it meant. Typhoon was the contingency plan for catastrophic, unrecoverable failure. He called his two engineers, both Katsas from Mossad's Naval Technical Unit, to his cabin. The operation is burned, Yossi said. Khartoum is talking. We're scuttling. The two men nodded, their faces grim. There was no emotion. This was the job. How? One asked. We need a reason to sail. Tonight, Yossi said. He went to the ship's radio, the real one. He called the Jeddah Port Authority. This is Axom, Yossi barked into the radio. We have a medical emergency. My bosun Manuel has acute appendicitis. He is critical. I must make best speed to Suez for medical evacuation. It was a lie. Manuel was, at that moment, playing cards in the mess. The Port Authority, not wanting a dead Filipino on their hands, gave him immediate clearance. Yossi gave the order. Cast off, full steam. The Axom steamed out of Jeddah harbor, her engines pounding. Manuel was brought to the bridge, confused. Captain, I am not sick. Yossi put a hand on Manuel's shoulder. He looked at the man who had been his unwitting companion for 3 years. The man who knew, but never spoke. Manuel, Yossi said, his voice low. The business is over. You and the rest of the crew, the 8 civilian sailors, are getting a bonus. We are diverting. An Israeli ship will meet us in 4 hours. They will take you to Eilat. You will be flown home to Manila. You will be a rich man. You will just have to forget. Manuel looked at Yossi, then at the lights of Jeddah receding. He finally understood. He nodded. God bless you, Captain. 2 hours later, in the dead of night, the Axom rendezvoused with an Israeli missile boat that had dashed south. The civilian crew, ecstatic and terrified, were transferred. "What about you, Captain?" Manuel asked, the last one to leave. "I have to clean the office," Yossi said. He threw Manuel his bag. "Go." Now only the Axom and its 3-man Mossad crew remained. They sailed for another 2 hours, heading for the Swaken Trough, one of the deepest points in the Red Sea, over 8,000 feet deep. They were in the middle of the shipping lane. "Now," Yossi said. The 2 engineers went below. They didn't use explosives. Those could be traced. They used tools. They went to the main engine room and opened the seacocks, the large valves that pull in seawater to cool the engines. Then, they went to the ballast tanks and did the same. They used sledgehammers to break the pipes, ensuring they could not be closed. Water began to pour into the Axom. They returned to the bridge. Yossi was on the radio, broadcasting an international mayday. "Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is SS Axom. We have struck a submerged object. We are taking on water, flooding in the engine room. We are sinking. I repeat, we are sinking." He gave his position. He wanted the world to know why she sank. It was an accident. The ship was already listing to port. The sound of a dying ship is a terrible one. The screech of metal, the hiss of water, the groan of bulkheads. The 3 men walked to the stern and calmly deployed a single life raft. They climbed in. 10 minutes later, the SS Axom, the first ship of the Ghost Fleet, her hull filled with secrets, slipped beneath the waves. The water closed over her mast. She was gone. The 3 men sat in the life raft, watching. "She was a good ship," the engineer said. "She was," Yossi agreed. They bobbed in the darkness for an hour until a black silent shape surfaced next to them. The hatch of the INS Dolphin, a submarine, opened. Hands pulled them in. The Axom was gone. The Red Sea Star was on its way to a Taiwanese scrapyard. The librarian had died during interrogation in Khartoum, never giving up the final secret of the ship's origins. The file was being closed. The final audit of Project Babylon by Sea was not conducted in a boardroom. It was conducted by Dana, the finance wizard, in her same subterranean office. It was not a report of profit and loss in dollars, but in assets. Assets lost: 1 3,000-ton freighter, SS Axom, scuttled. 1 10,000-ton container ship, Red Sea Star, sold for scrap. 1 active Scion network in Sudan, burned. 1 compromised merchant crew, paid and resettled. The librarian, neutralized. Assets gained: 1 complete operational P-18 spoon rest radar system, delivered. Self-defense hardware for 3 allied proxy groups, delivered. A new proven doctrine of logistical espionage. Was it a success? In the cold calculus of intelligence, it was a staggering victory. The P-18 radar alone was worth 10 ships. It allowed Israeli Air Force technicians to map the radar's electronic signature, developing the very countermeasures that would save Israeli pilots' lives in future conflicts. The infrastructure was gone, but the mission was complete. The final act was to erase the story. In Piraeus, the gambling-addicted shipping agent Spiros received a telex. The London investment group was dissolving the business. The market had turned. Spiros was given a massive severance package, which he saw as a just reward for his hard work. He was sad to see RSTMS go. It was the best-paying job he ever had. In Panama City, the registration for Red Sea Transit and Maritime Services was allowed to expire. It became a defunct corporation. In Luxembourg, Dana's team initiated a final, complex series of transfers. The $1.5 million left in the RSTMS bank account was washed through a dozen charities, foundations, and art purchases before it flowed silently back into the Mossad's discretionary fund. Red Sea Transit and Maritime Services had ceased to exist. It had vanished, leaving behind nothing but a few confusing entries in the Suez Canal's shipping logs and a handful of baffled port inspectors. The men who had run it returned to the shadows. Yossi was given a quiet shore-based job, training new naval cadets. Rafi, the first mate, was assigned to a new post in Paris. Ari was the last one to close his file. He stood at a window overlooking Tel Aviv. He thought of the heat of Port Sudan, the face of Manuel the bosun, the sound of the P-18 truck hitting the hull. History is shaped by two things: the loud, visible acts of war and the slow, invisible acts of work. The Ghost Fleet was ghost work. It was an operation of rust, paperwork, and patience. It proved that in the new era of warfare, a bill of lading could be as powerful as a bullet. The Red Sea was a highway again, but the silent, secret lane Mossad had built within it was gone, dissolving like the wake of a ship that had passed long ago. The map on the wall was the same, but the blue line was no longer a barrier. It was, and would always be, a road. This has been a deconstruction of one of the most complex logistical operations in modern intelligence history. The reality of espionage is often not the chase, but the patient construction of the infrastructure of deception. If this is the kind of analysis you appreciate, the deep, forensic look into the stories that are never told, make sure to subscribe to Cinematic Intel and click the notification bell. Thank you for watching.